to my kitchen. I'm excited to share with you what I consider the single best swap we've made in our kitchen over the past few years, especially as someone raising small children right now. And that is the crown jewel of our kitchen, my grain mill right here. We've started milling our own flour. I don't have an affiliate code for this or anything like that. I really wish I did, because it's the thing I am most trying to talk people into lately, is switching to fresh milled flour. So like I said, it's a grain mill. I put in wheat kernels like this. Can you see that? They're like little kernels of wheat. I put them in there. It comes out as fresh milled flour. Maybe you're aware, maybe you're not. Everyone used to mill their own flour at home, or they would take the grain that they grew to the local miller and get their grain milled fresh. But of course, when they started mass producing food, they needed it to be shelf stable. So of course they couldn't just fresh mill flour and then sell it just as it is. They had to sift it and strip out what are actually the most important parts of the wheat kernel. So these wheat kernels, they're made up of 3 different parts. I actually forget what all of them are called, but basically there's the bran, which is the outside, and then I think it's the wheat and the germ, I want to say, or no, you know what? I don't know. I don't remember the 3 parts. But basically when it's sifted, the parts that are getting stripped out are the most nutritious parts for our bodies. And then what's left is the part that is not as good for us, because that's the part that is more shelf stable. And often flour is synthetically fortified with synthetic vitamins, but often our bodies don't recognize those, and we don't get the same benefits that we do from real food the way God made it. So of course, milling it yourself in your kitchen before you bake with it, that gets back some of those important nutrients. And I will share a list of those nutrients with you in just a couple minutes. It functions fairly similar to normal all-purpose flour, but it is a little bit different. It can end up with a bit of a different texture. So for some things like bread or pizza dough, stuff like that, I'll use 50-50, because I find the dough doesn't get as stretchy when it's all fresh milled flour, and you don't get the same rise in a loaf of bread or something like that. Otherwise though, I have a loaf right here. This one, it is baked in my nice stone loaf pan. These are still my favorite. This one is 50-50 with all purpose and fresh milled flour, and you can see it just looks like normal bread. It does have a slightly nutty flavor, which we've actually gotten used to, and I find I miss it if I'm having white bread or even in baked goods. I use fully fresh milled flour for things like muffins and cakes and cookies and stuff like that. I don't notice a huge difference. I guess I notice it, but we've come to really like the nutty flavor that it adds. So I want to share with you the list of vitamins and minerals and stuff that are in fresh milled flour as opposed to regular all-purpose. A ton of vitamins, B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, and folate, which is, if you've ever been pregnant, you know they tell you to take folic acid. That's the synthetic form of folate, which is found in lots of foods, but also fresh milled flour. It's also loaded with minerals like iron, magnesium, zinc, phosphorus, and potassium. And then there's other good stuff like fiber, antioxidants, and this is a buzzword lately, protein in your bread when you use fresh milled flour, all those good things. So like I said, this is really important to me as someone raising small children, because we eat a ton of bread in our house. We just got home from church and ate a whole entire loaf of bread between our family. So we eat a ton of bread. We eat a ton of bread products, muffins, cookies. What else do I make with flour? I don't know. Whatever you can think of, we probably eat it. And I love making that stuff from scratch and using fresh milled flour, because then I know that even if at dinner time all my kids eat is their bread, they are getting those good nutrients without me having to stress too hard about it. They are getting those good things. So anyways, you might not want to buy a grain mill. Maybe you don't actually like to bake from scratch and it would be a waste to get a grain mill. But I just wanted to share that with you because it's been such a significant change in our lives, and you will see me baking a lot of things from scratch, a lot of things in my kitchen, and using fresh milled flour. So I wanted to give you that background info in case this is new to you, so that you know what I'm doing when I'm pulling out my fresh milled flour and stuff like that. So the fun thing is, since I rejoined Pampered Chef, I've been realizing they actually have a lot of food kits now. I think last time I was doing it, there wasn't as much food, like pre-made food stuff available. Now there's a pizza dough starter kit. They have what they call a sourdough bread starter kit. I think you basically just add water and oil, maybe something else to these, and then you can bake it right at home in your kitchen. I want you to know there's nothing wrong with that, and that is a great shortcut if that's what you have capacity for right now. You probably won't see me personally using those a lot in my kitchen, and this is why, because I like to just take the extra few minutes to pull it together from scratch and use my fresh milled flour. But please also know, I like to do things a little bit intense. I like to make things as from scratch as possible. I'm never going to judge you for not doing that, or if you aren't maybe new to baking bread or making dough and stuff like that. I think those kits can be a great tool, or I keep calling them kits. Those starter mixes is what I'm trying to say. So I wanted you to know that. First of all, I've decided this month is going to kind of have a pizza theme. So I will walk you through how I make my pizza dough from scratch. And then also, if you want to have that fresh homemade pizza dough without all the extra steps, the Pampered Chef pizza dough starter, is it called starter? Anyways, there's a bag of it that you add water and oil to. That is available if you want to have fresh homemade pizza without all those extra steps. So, but I wanted to give you again this background information before we get into that kind of thing. So thanks so much for listening today. And if you want to learn more about fresh milled flour, I would suggest going to basically any podcast app or even Google and Googling Sue Becker. I listened to her on a few podcasts, and she is the one that really tipped me over the edge for wanting to do this myself. And she's an incredible woman who raised, I think, 9 kids or something, all on whole foods and whole grains, and found her kids were incredibly healthy, barely got sick, had great energy, all that good stuff. And she also quotes a lot of Bible verses, which I think is really cool, about bread and about, there's even one about a grain mill that she quotes. So go Google her. That's your homework if you want to learn more about fresh milled flour. But again, that's something new that we do in our kitchen. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day.